Coming up on today's Locked On Senators, we've done RFA projections for Shane Pinto, Eric Brandstrom, and Alex DeBrincat. But what about the bubble players like Egor Sokolov and Jacob Bernard-Docker? What kind of contracts are they looking like going into next season?
And we covered the first round of our rankings in our 2023 NHL Draft Prospect Profile. So now we're on to the second round with three new players in Oliver Bonk, Lukas Dragicevic, and Oscar Fisker Molgaard.
Lots of Sens fans will have fond memories of one of their fathers. We'll get into that and more. This is the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 823 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Please like and subscribe wherever you download your podcast. We're also available on YouTube, where this Saturday we will be releasing our second feature film. It's the equivalent of Avatar 2. We are already at 4 hours of our full first round mock draft with special guests, so look out for that on YouTube this weekend. Today is Monday, June 19th, and Pilsy, we are less than 2 weeks away from the NHL draft.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm getting very excited, Ross, especially now that, as you mentioned, we're multiple hours into our mock draft, getting the different opinions of each analyst and being like, oh, this guy could go high, this guy could go low. Who knows what's going to happen? It's the NHL draft.
Plenty of time to predict, prognosticate, and have a live stream the night of the draft. So check us out on YouTube. Another reason to subscribe to the show. It also really helps us out. So please, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe on YouTube. And that thumbs up helps below as well. All right, before we get to today's draft profiles, which includes Oliver Bonk, a very highly requested name for our draft profiles, we want to talk about some of the bubble players with Ottawa, because a lot of the talk is, how do they shuffle the bottom six from last year that didn't produce any offense at all? And how does the bottom pair produce more valuable minutes? And sure, adding Chychrun and getting healthy bodies back will be in one thing, but is Jacob Bernard-Docker guaranteed an NHL spot? Those two guys I want to focus on, Egor Sokolov, Jacob Bernard-Docker, for one specific reason, Pilsy. Both require waivers, no matter what their next contract is, two-way or otherwise, and you could risk losing them for nothing. A first and a second round pick, respectively, and you could really lose them for nothing with what? A combined 60 games, if that, of NHL experience. Where are you at with them, and how would you approach contract negotiations with each?
Well, let's start with Jacob Bernard-Docker. We had our interview with General Manager Pierre Dorion, and he flat out said, this is Jacob Bernard-Docker's job to lose. He has the inside track right now on making this team as a bottom pair defenseman. And I think if you're Jacob Bernard-Docker and the Ottawa Senators, that makes a lot of sense. Like, it's about time either he is available as an everyday or at least consistent NHL player, or it's mutually beneficial that both parties move on here. Because I don't want this to be a detriment on JBD, because obviously there's been obstacles along the way. But you mentioned it, Ross. He's a first-round draft pick. This is a guy that right when he was drafted, at least I'll say for myself, I pegged him as being a great partner option for Thomas Chabot down the road. Now, he's played with Thomas Chabot. He's shown he can play top minutes in Belleville. He's shown he can be a decent guy in small sample sizes in the NHL. But I think he's going to have a huge camp here. And I don't know what's going to happen with this contract, Ross, but I think we're going to see him get a 1 year, one-way deal.
He is on a situation where his qualifying offer as an RFA will be $874,125 and be a two-way contract because of the amount of games played. He did not get 60 games next season, but that doesn't mean he has to take his qualifying offer.
True. Yes.
Right? So that's where he can negotiate beyond that. I think it's almost in his best interest to just kind of, for one more year, I think, at least from the player standpoint, just kind of go with the flow. Be like, hey, I want this. Maybe try to negotiate the AHL salary higher, because that's almost the fallback option. If he plays well enough that he at least catches another team's attention in preseason, he's on waivers, whether it's a two-way contract or a one-way contract, and it almost makes it better for a team to pick him up and be like, okay, well, we do have the option, since we've picked him up on waivers, to send him down. So I think from that standpoint, it could be beneficial for JBD to just take that qualifying offer and say, look, one last year of this, he's going to be 23, 24, and he was a late birthday in his draft anyways, right? Compared to the others, he was June 30th birthday, which ironically is the deadline for qualifying offers to be applied, June 30th at 5 p.m. So I'm really interested to see if he just takes it. I think that if he wants to, have maybe a better standing with the organization and not trying to be, what I mean? Like, he hasn't really proven that much at the NHL level, especially. So maybe he's like, okay, I'll get in line, for lack of a better term. But if it doesn't work out this year, then next summer, we're going our separate ways type thing. Let me get a fresh start. Whereas Egor, to me, is the really interesting one, because he was drafted as a double overager. So with that, the Senators should have known that he's closer to making the NHL, or closer to being like, hey, where is my NHL job? He's 23 as of last week. He's 23 years old. So he's actually the same age as JBD, despite being drafted 2 years later. So that to me is a little interesting, but because he's played 3 seasons of pro hockey, despite the games played requirement for waivers is 143 games or 3 seasons. So it's so unfortunate that half a COVID season is the difference. But he showed at the end of the year, man. He had 2 points in his last 3 games. He showed well, 2 points in 5 games at the end of the year. I want it to be his job to lose in the bottom 6. And we're going to bang that drum all summer. He's spending the entire summer in Ottawa, is going to be at the facility, training, working under the eye of the Ottawa Senators. And I think for him, it should be a 1-year prove it deal, but 1 year, $950,000 cap one way. Give him a high AHL salary. If you send him on waivers, he probably, I would hope, gets picked up, but I don't know that for sure. But I think that when you're a Senators team who, and I've heard more and more people, we know our friends Jack and Brennan from the Everyday Sens podcast, they're of the mind that you just hand DeBrincat a blank check, for lack of a better term. I think $9 million is what they're saying. I'm still the mind 8.5 is kind of where I draw the line on DeBrincat in terms of falling into line with the rest. But either way, if you're paying your top end guys all $7 million or more, 6.5 if you want to add Giroux into the mix, you need guys with under $1 million cap hit producing in the bottom 6. To me, that's Egor Sokolov.
And he's your perfect third line winger. He's a guy that can provide offense. He's got a bit of size. He spent a lot of time developing in the AHL. He's ready. It's his time. And I think Jeff Merrick says this all the time, Ross. At a certain point, you got to stop blocking your prospects. He's been blocked by the likes of Austin Watson, Dylan Gambrell, Julian Gauthier, Patrick Brown, just guys that you know what they are. You know what they are. So give Egor a chance here and find out what he can be with a proper sample size on a line with Shane Pinto and Matthew Joseph.
Insert your speedy winger here.
Exactly. So I just think that he has an opportunity to do that. I think he's ready, and I think at the very least he deserves a chance.
I completely agree with that. And some people say, "Oh, you're just buddies with Egor." No, we've seen it. We saw him score his first NHL goal the last game I went to. He looked pretty smooth there, making about 16 moves coming in on Brian Elliott, putting him between the wickets 5-hole. I just want to see him get an opportunity, and we just mentioned it for both of these guys. JBD developed for 3 years at North Dakota. But then he's also played 3 years in Belleville. Egor's played 3 years in Belleville. What's the point in having a development system if you're not going to allow these depth pieces to go up instead of going out and acquiring a Julian Gauthier, acquiring a Patrick Brown? Let them get roster spots for at least a bit, prove they can do it. And I think both of these guys should be in positions where they make the opening night roster. I think you can build around that in terms of adding a piece here, adding a piece there. But I think that JBD and Egor Sokolov should both be in the opening night lineup for the Ottawa Senators.
I'm with you. I'd love to see that.
Let us know in the comments if you disagree. I wish we could have a contentious argument, but it just feels like they're over ripening in the minors right now. Egor's led the team 2 years in scoring. What more do you want from the kid?
He has almost every franchise record for the Belleville Senators. Like, come on.
It's time to move along. Get up to 401 and come to Ottawa. So let us know in the comments. So if you disagree and why, and tomorrow we will read some of those because we do want differing opinions on the show. I'm sure others have it, but on Locked On Senators, you are getting the stamp of approval. JBD, Egor Sokolov need to be in the NHL. All right, coming up, Oliver Bonk, the profile you've all been waiting for.
Yeah.
Now, Oliver Bonk will not be there at 108th overall, but there is a wide range of opinions on Oliver Bonk. Lukas Dragicevic and Oscar Fisker Molgaard, the first Dane on our list this year as well. They're all coming up. You're listening to Locked On Senators.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Guys, you already know all about eBay, but did you know you can get parts for your car as well at eBay Motors? For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is that perfect fit. Well, it's the same when it comes to your vehicles. Every part's got to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay's guaranteed fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right. And here's the key: the first time around. No fidgeting with parts that don't work or don't fit. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check mark so you know the part will fit or you get your money back. You gotta love that, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game. And with over 122 million, yes, 122 million parts to choose from, you can be confident that you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when all the right parts are guaranteed. So get the right parts, get the right fit, and get the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. Let's ride with eBay Motors.
Today's episode is also brought to you by a fantastic local company in Ottawa. It's Farm to Fork. Head over to farmtoforkdelivery.ca and taste the Farm to Fork difference for yourself. Use promo code SENS10 for 10% off your first purchase. They know you're going to love it so much, you will keep coming back. Farm to Fork is a premium meat and seafood delivery service. First and foremost, absolutely delicious. Don't believe it? 5-star average review on Google. And well, how about our own review, Pilsy? What would you give it out of 5 stars? I know you've been crushing the chicken breasts, crushing the steaks. You love yourself some Farm to Fork, no?
Is there a 6 out of 5 star option, Ross? Because honestly, that's where I'd go. It gets delivered right to your door. It's individually vacuum sealed, so you can either have 1 chicken breast, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to have steak night? Oh, your buddy said, hey, I finished work early. Can I come over for a steak? Absolutely, we'll fire one up for you. So yes, 6 out of 5 star review for Pilsy.
All natural, antibiotic and hormone-free, ethically raised, and the products are individually vacuum sealed, like Pilsy said, so you only take out what you need. And they're available Western Quebec, GTA, Ottawa. It's not just the Ottawa area. You will be shocked. So go.
I got it in Collingwood, Ross.
There you go. Go put in your zip code, your postal code on farmtoforkdelivery.ca and find out that they will deliver to you. So go check them out, farmtoforkdelivery.ca. Taste the Farm to Fork difference and use SENS10 for 10% off your first purchase. Head over, Farm to Fork Delivery. Taste the Farm to Fork difference. You will never go back to grocery store meats. All right. A reminder that you can follow the show on Twitter at Sens Central. You can also follow the show on Instagram, lockedon.senators. Pilsy, I put some money up for you without you knowing.
Oh, okay.
If we get to 6,000 subscribers on YouTube by draft night, we are buying one lucky subscriber a Senators jersey of their choice. That's a big ask. We are 213 away. Can we get there in a week and a half? Be a friend, tell a friend. We're the podcast for Sens fans, by Sens fans, available 5 days a week, free and available to you on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to our everydayers out there riding with us through the off season. We appreciate you. And again, subscribe to the channel because you also never know when we're going to go live wearing suits like we did when the team was sold last week. It's always a good vibe at Locked On Senators. So make sure you're subscribed, follow the show, all that great stuff. Next season, there's no excuses. Pilsy, that's a tagline we're going with for next season.
No excuses. No, it's playoffs or bust.
Playoffs or bust. You heard it right there. Coming in at number 33 on our Locked On Senators NHL draft rankings, the son of Senators legend Radek Bonk from the London Knights. It's Oliver Bonk.
Ross, this is the first time I'm hearing of this prospect. Oliver Bonk? Sens fans, why didn't anyone notify us of Oliver Bonk? No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, Oliver Bonk was well on our radar a long time ago, and not just because we're Sens fans and not just because his dad played for the Sens, or for the fact that his prediction was the Ottawa Senators would win the cup if they just made the playoffs last season. We love this kid for so many more reasons, Ross. It is hard to find a right shot defenseman, number one, a shutdown right shot defenseman, number two, and three, a shutdown right defenseman that can also put up points. He put up 40 points with the London Knights this season. And if you know anything about the way the London Knights operate, it's not easy for any kid just to walk on there and get big playing time. Dale Hunter has these kids. They got to earn their spots. But Oliver Bonk proved pretty quickly that he can be trusted.
Yeah, sometimes when you're not trusted, you end up getting traded to Kingston or something like that if you're a second round pick. But that's neither here nor there. Oliver Bonk is 6'1", 180 pounds in 67 games this past season. He had 10 goals, 30 assists, good for 40 points, and 38 penalty minutes. And we have a couple of our scouts see him as a first-round talent at 26 overall, both Corey Pronman and Chris Peters. But then Scott Wheeler has him at 41. Craig Button has him at 43. And Elite Prospects is all the way down at 56. So a very wide variety of opinions. Where do you stand on Oliver Bonk?
As far as rankings goes, Ross, I think we could see him be one of the first defensemen selected in the second round. I think depending on how the domino defenseman pick goes in the first round, I anticipate once the second and or third defenseman is picked, we might see a bunch of others picked after. But I really think somewhere in the 30 to 45 pick range is a great spot for Oliver Bonk.
Here's what I'll say about Oliver Bonk. I think he goes in the first round, but if he goes in the second, it's a great pick. That's where I'm at, where it's like, if you're expecting him to be a top four defenseman who plays on the power play and penalty kill, you might be asking a little bit too much, at least right away. But if you're going to be patient with Oliver Bonk and bring him in as a 5'6" defenseman with some of that, not all of that responsibility, I think he's going to make you look like a very smart general manager. EP, even though they were the lowest on him, did call him the third best shutdown defenseman in this draft. So I just don't want a team to draft him and expect him to put up 40 points in the NHL, at least in the first 5 years. Like, I think that you have to be patient with him. You have to let him kind of grow into those minutes. Like, basically, you can't treat him the way that London treated him and just put him into these situations. I know he excelled at this level, but I think patience is going to be key with Oliver Bonk.
Well, Ross, especially I feel like you'd be doing kind of a detriment to his attributes doing that, because you just mentioned it. EP says he's the third best shutdown defenseman in this draft. Let him shut the door on people and don't worry about him trying to produce on the power play. Now, is that possible that he could do that? Absolutely. I'm not going to sit here and say that there's no chance that it can happen, because he's already proved it at the OHL level, and you got to go with what you know so far. But the thing is, he plays just such a reliable, safe, smart game. He's keeping attackers wide. He's reading the plays effectively. When he's bringing the puck up the ice, no issue chipping it off the boards and in, and just not creating a turnover or making a risky play. It's a very meat and potatoes style of game, but if you play it smart and effectively, there's a reason it's regarded as a simple, safe way. It's because it's effective. Exactly. So I think a lot of defensemen that are coming up into the draft, you know, they want to put up the points. They want the flashy highlights to get noticed. But Oliver Bonk is content knowing, I don't really care about how flashy I look. I'm going to play hockey the right way. I think coaches at the next level are going to love this kid. He just is so projectable, and he's someone that you can put over the board shift by shift, and you're not concerned. You're not stressed out. He's just going to give you good quality shutdown defensive options.
High floor. on him.
High floor. Yep.
Kind of like David Reinbacher, where it's like you can project them to see what they're going to be at the next level, but I'm not going to put a ceiling on them because I do think there is untapped offensive potential for Oliver Bonk as well. And in the playoffs, man, he was an important piece of that London Knights team. In 21 playoff games, had 11 points, +8, only took 3 minor penalties, and he's playing against the top teams, top players on the other team night in and night out. And let's remember this as a guy who's not the oldest guy. I mean, he turned 18 in January this year, and the build is just you can easily project it. So I'm fired up about Oliver Bonk. I think if he goes anywhere from 33, where ironically is exactly where we have him in the draft, first pick of the second round, beyond, it's a complete home run. If your team reached, for lack of a better term, and took him in the middle or late first round, like maybe he is in our mock draft, you'll have to go check out the full first round mock draft, but I think that you're still going to be able to see upside in that. So I think that Oliver Bonk's going to play in the NHL. Like, that's going to be sick. And how about, well, we already talked about how in the car there, he's talking, all the Sens need to do is get in the playoffs. So he endeared himself to Sens fans pretty quickly with that notion, but showing up to the NHL scouting combine with a mullet, just like his dad's legendary NHL draft photo with the Ottawa Senators. And his dad was the 3rd overall pick in the NHL draft to the Sens way back in the day. So I thought that was a cool little homage that he did to that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. Like, this is a kid with character. Now, obviously, we're Sens biased. So being like, he picked the Sens to go deep in the playoffs and had a mullet just like his dad. Great character. Like, you got to love that. But I think there's more to that. And it just shows that obviously, this is a kid with good character if he was trusted by Dale Hunter and the London Knights staff to put up these big minutes and play in these big moments. So I just think if you're a team scouting Oliver Bonk and looking to draft him, you can rest assured that at some point this kid's going to be a part of your NHL roster. And look, obviously you want to swing for upside with draft picks, especially in a deep draft like this. But there is some comfort in being like, look, we're not really sure where these other guys are going to land, but we got a safe pick in Oliver Bonk.
You certainly do. Let's finish up our conversation on Oliver Bonk with some trivia about his dad. Pilsy, where does Radek Bonk rank in terms of all-time games played by an Ottawa Senator?
I'm going to say he's 8th.
Higher.
Oh, can't be top 5, so I'll say 6.
He's number 5.
Oh, okay. All right.
Jason Spetz is 6th, 3 games behind him, and Erik Karlsson is actually in 8th. How about, I'll let you regroup here. How about in points?
12th.
6th in points.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And only 3 forwards in Sens history have more points than Radek.
So I was way off there. Wow.
Alfredson, Spezza, Yashin, Radek Bonk.
Whew.
Now, I mean, some guys right behind him played like 200 less games, Marian Hossa, Danny Heatley. But hey, longevity, that's a part of it too. So Radek Bonk, obviously, he's still an Ottawa guy too. Follows us on Twitter. Great dude, Bonky. And hey, we got to get Radek Bonk on the show sometime. Hey, right after the Sens draft his son. Hey, we like that. So check out all of our draft profiles on YouTube at Locked On Senators. But of course, we're a little biased. He's an Ottawa kid. So we've got to be on board with Oliver Bonk. But if your team just took him, there's a lot to like for the 6'2" defenseman with the London Knights. All right, coming up next on Locked On Senators, we have 2 more draft profiles to get to. So stay tuned. You're listening to Locked On Senators. All right, Pilsy. Locked On Senators. Locked On NHL Draft, basically, though, for the next couple weeks.
Yeah, honestly, you and I both love the draft. I just think the drama and the intrigue that goes around it, if you're really dialed in, you have a sense of where each guy is kind of slated. When it goes completely off the rails, which it does every year, it certainly makes for some exciting TV.
Another thing I love, too, is it kind of introduces you to the next decade in the NHL. Right,
especially this draft. I think we could see, oh my God, like 20 of these guys could be playing prominent roles in the NHL in the next 3 years.
Coming in at number 34 on our Locked On Senators NHL draft rankings, defenseman for the Tri-City Americans, it's Lukas Dragicevic. and he is all offense all the time.
Yeah, Ross, it's ironic. We just went from covering Oliver Bonk, who is a very good shutdown defender, to Dragicevic, who his motto is the best defense is a good offense, or at least it should be, because this guy puts up points in a big way. With the Tri-City Americans in the WHL in 68 games, he had 15 goals and 60 assists, good for 75 points. EP rated him as the best offensive defenseman in the entire draft.
Ooh, the best. Nobody is on the same level as Dragicevic, and there's reason for it. Like, he's so silky smooth in the offensive zone. How many of his highlights did you see where he's looking one way and then just pivots, and all of a sudden it's on another guy's tape and it's in the back of the net? Like, out of his 60 assists, I gotta say 40 of them are primary. It just felt like everything, it was off his stick to another guy and it's in the back of the net.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, that's the thing. He's so creative. Like, you don't know what he's going to do. He can set up the give and go and keep up and play along with it. He can do a really good job of getting the puck through traffic, allowing tips and rebounds. And he's able to deceive opponents, like you mentioned, making it look like he's going to go one way and then totally fooling them and going the other. And the thing with Dragicevic, is that he can also do a really good job, which sometimes offensive defensemen struggle with this. Sometimes they're victims of the rush and they use their skating and they want to be a part of transition, and that's how they generate offense. But I found with Dragicevic is that he does a good job walking that O-line and quarterbacking a power play. And he's someone that I can really see a team looking at and being like, if they draft him, we just got our PP1 quarterback for the next decade.
6'1", 190 pounds, plays that prominent right side of the decor. But Pilsy, is it enough to make up for the fact that he is, I'll say it, a liability in his own end?
He's all offense and negative defense. Like, not even no defense. I would probably say it's fair to say it's negative defense. But you guys know I have this pull where I'm like, okay, sometimes the offensive guys, you just got to let them run. Just open the gate, let them run. And if they come back to the pasture and try to defend, cool. If they don't, cool. Because he's so good offensively, I don't want to make him. You like that one, eh?
You sound like a person who's watched Erik Karlsson for 10 years.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, Erik Karlsson's last season was a perfect reflection of that. But the thing is, I don't want to make him a decent offensive defenseman just to make him, I don't want to make him a decent defensive defenseman just to make him a decent offensive defenseman. Now you just have a decent defenseman, which isn't a bad thing, but you're really taking away from the talent and the ability that this guy has. But Ross, if he's going to play in the pros, which I anticipate he will one day, you got to have some defense. Like, there's got to be a little bit there. And right now that is severely lacking. And a big part of it, unfortunately, is the skating. This is a guy that is not a great skater. And if you can skate better, that's going to just inherently affect your ability to defend better, because you can get to spots and better times. You can force guys wide, things like that, right? So I think first things first, you try to get him a better skater, because that's going to help his offense as well. But in turn, it's also going to help his defense.
Yeah, and someone one of the scouts described Scott Wheeler as clunky feet. It's probably not ideal at the National Hockey League level, having clunky feet on the back end. Like, we see some forwards get away with it because they have elite stick, elite hockey sense. But as a defenseman who you need him to be able to at least, like, even if he's not going to defend well, you need him to be able to get back on defense and not be a turnstile at the offensive blue line and just giving up odd man rushes all the time.
Yeah, and that's just the issue, right? Like, in the WHL, if you're that talented offensively, you can get away with that. But moving ahead to the AHL and eventually NHL, you're going to end up on a bottom pair, and you're going to be stuck on the bench until your team gets a man advantage, and that's not ideal.
The contrast between him and Oliver Bonk, I think, is perfect. Yin and yang. Like, they would make a great partnership, if they played on the same team.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, both of them are right shots, but yeah, it could work out.
Yeah, this guy's giving me huge Kevin Kurchinski vibes from last year, where Korchinski went 7th. This guy's nowhere near it. And it's all because Korchinski's an elite skater as well.
Yes.
Like, that's the one thing. But in terms of their play inside the offensive blue line, that's their canvas and their artists in there. But in their own zone, they may as well be putting on skates for the first time sometimes. The decision-making of like where to be and giving up open, easy tap-ins back door, like it's raw talent. So on the offensive side. So I think that Lukas Dragicevic is going to play in the AHL. I do not see a world where he comes right out of junior and is trusted by an NHL coach to play. But I also see a world where if he goes into the right system and you're patient with him, this guy could have a ton of rewards in terms of being a 50-point defenseman in the NHL.
Yeah, I agree, Ross. I think this is a bit of a risky pick, and I think some teams will just straight up avoid him just because, like you mentioned, it's a lot of work. And even if you have the right developmental path in place, it doesn't always play out. It doesn't always work out, unfortunately.
We should mention, though, Tri-City was brutal this year.
Yeah, well, and that's another thing, right? And again, let's go back to the Carlson comparison. He played on a San Jose Sharks team that they weren't even thinking about the P word. Like, it was just, hey, let's give fans something to clap about here. And Erik Karlsson certainly did that, and he didn't care about defense, and he put up a monster season points-wise. So that's definitely something to take into consideration here, but I really see him as being a second-round draft pick. I think if teams are selecting a defenseman in the first round, they're going to go with guys that have a more well-rounded game. And I even think Oliver Bonk will be selected ahead of him.
And I think that we're right before the draft, by the way. We're going to put out like our top forward list, our top defensive list, and we're going to break it down a little bit like that. It'll be nice to see a bit of a kind of a gap between each guy at their own position. One thing I like about Dragicevic is that he went to the World Under-18s, and Canada got dummied in game 1. They lost 8-0 to Sweden, and Dragicevic was -5 in that game. It could be easy to have it affect your confidence, right? And just be like, wow, like that was tough. Played 18 minutes and was -5. What does he do? In his next 4 games, he gets a point in each of the 4 games. He's got like 15 shots on goal, plays over 20 minutes in all the games, was worth the price of admission basically on his own. They won the bronze medal game 4-3 over Slovakia. He played 32.5 minutes. So clearly he was able to get the trust of his coach at that level. But what's it going to translate to at the next level? He has to go back to junior for it. Obviously has to go back next year. Even the year after, I think that's the best spot for him to be. But beyond that, it's patience with Dragicevic. I really think it is. A BC kid, like, I think, like, if he could make it to, like, does Vancouver, the Canucks suck with keeping their own picks, but, like, I feel like in the second round, like, that could be a nice little spot for, they don't have a second rounder. Damn, I wanted to hit my hometown bus there, but I don't know. He would be very, out of the defensemen that we've covered, he would be last right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah, which is where he's at. Yeah,
but there's also some upside, which you can't ignore. And just like full disclosure, we don't have another defenseman until 42, and we're at 32 right now. So this might be the end of a tier with the Oliver Bonks, the Tanner Molendykes, the Mikhail Gulyaevs as well. And that's probably the second tier, right? And then your top tier is your Willander, your Simashev, your Sandin Pelika, and David Reinbacher would be kind of that one tier. So I'd say he's towards the bottom of the second tier. But again, people love right shot defensemen. They love 6'2" defensemen. Someone could fall in love with him and take him a little earlier. But to me, I'm going to put the high end at 40. If he goes before 40, I might say there's some talent on the table here. But if he goes 40 or below, I'll say that's a very justifiable swing.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's fair.
For more on Lukas Dragicevic, make sure you check out Locked On Senators on YouTube. 70+ draft profiles available for you there. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. All right, coming in at number 35 on our Locked On Senators 2023 NHL draft rankings. It's a Danish forward centerman who's playing in the Swedish Hockey League. It's Oscar Fisker Molgaard.
Yeah, Ross, it's very impressive what Oscar Fisker Molgaard has been able to do. And you mentioned playing in the Swedish Hockey League. Well, it wasn't just a cup of coffee. He basically had one of those big Tim Hortons things you see at work functions where you can pour about 41 cups of it, because he had 41 games in the SHL this season. And he was able to be a big part of that team and what they were trying to accomplish. And in the J20 league, he had success there, obviously, in 21 games, 6 goals, 17 assists for 23 points, as you see on the graphic here. But in the SHL, in 41 games, he had 4 goals, 3 assists, good for 7 points. But Oscar Fisker Molgaard isn't a guy that you're looking to light up the stat sheet when you're highlighting what he's good at. I think, Ross, this is a really good defensive-minded forward.
I do too. Now he's 6 foot tall, 163 pounds. So he's going to need some time to fill out, to say, and that's not a bad thing. I think that a slow and steady approach with guys in this range is extremely respectable and honestly should be promoted for that. But I also don't want to see him pigeonholed into a role where he can't show any of his offense. I know that elite prospects used Mikael Backlund as a shades of. I'm going to go with Joel Eriksson Ek, like another, Scandinavian, solid defensively, but he's also a guy that I know he's got more size than Fisker Molgaard, but I also think that he can be a guy who creates in the offensive zone because his hockey IQ stood out for me in all the plays. Just smart little plays, makes his line mates better. And I think that's going to be his calling card at the NHL level. I think he's going to find a role on a penalty killing unit as well as like maybe a second power play unit, depending on, how long the development curve takes. But I see some serious upside with him. And I believe he's going back to HV71 next year. It's a great program that's developed a lot of NHL talent over the years in Sweden. And our prospect scouts see him as like a late first, mid second. Elite prospects, the highest on him at 28th overall. Corey Pronman has him at 37. Whoa. Pronman and Wheeler almost agree.
Weird.
Wow. Wheeler has him at 39. Chris Peters at 46. Craig Button at 45. So I think that's a very fair range for him. 28 to 45-ish. But man, does this not scream Detroit Red Wings?
Yeah, it does. And he's kind of like a poor man's Marco Kasper. I think there's a lot of similarities there. But I highlighted his defensive play, Ross, but that's not to say he has no offense. Like the highlights I saw of him in the SHL, what I noticed he did a really good job of is he's a great net front presence. Like he's screening goalies, he's getting tips, he's getting deflections, and he hounds down rebounds and is able to just call them garbage goals as much as you want. They look the same on the score sheet and they help your team win games.
Hey, mole garbage goals?
Mole garbage goals. I like that. But that's the thing, because he's such a kind of a tough player to play against. He's winning those net front battles up against other defensemen, and he's getting there. And then when you reverse it, and he's on defense in his own zone, he's smart enough to know, how do I effectively win these battles up against the boards? How do I put myself in a position to make it really tough on teams to find open ice when they're attacking? And I think he does a great job of that. So I think this is a very safe pick, Ross. This is another one where you're like, I can definitely see Oscar Fisker Molgaard playing in the NHL at some point. He's already playing 41 games in the SHL at this age. So he has that pro experience and he has the trust from his coaches that he can do that. I think that we're going to see him play as a third line center and be on a top penalty killing unit.
He's a little bit higher than where we have him on my own personal list.
Oh, really? Okay. See, I would have him a little lower. I think for me, he's somewhere in the 40s.
Contentious. He's start of the second round type pick. Like I feel like centermen always go early in the second round.
But consider this draft, Ross. There's so many centermen in the first round. Like the first 5 picks are centermen.
Yeah, and well, those first 5 picks with Leo Carlson and Adam Fantilli both got to play at the World Championships. I get it that Oscar Fisker Molgaard would not have played at the World Championships if he was if he was Swedish or Canadian or American. But the fact that he got that pro experience as well, no points, but EP said that he impressed scouts with his work rate there and just proving that, like, whether they're 30 years old playing pro hockey for years or whether they're his age group where he dominated, he's able to stack up defensively and not be an easy check for other teams, even though they're pro players. So I think this is going to be a really intriguing pick. If your team just took Oscar Fisker Molgaard, like I would be very intrigued. I would be doing a lot of watching at Dev Camp, because I could also see him as the type of guy where if he gets over to the North American ice, I could see him just being like one of those guys who's one of the best players at Dev Camp. And you're just like, oh, well, that opened some eyes. Obviously, he won't be at training camp this year because he's going to be overseas, but this guy might never play in the AHL. I think he might be 2 more years in Sweden, come right over and be in the NHL.
I mean, if he gets 3 years of SHL experience under his belt,
right,
that's pretty comparable to AHL. So yeah, I think that's fair.
And with his style of play, right? Like we talked,
Yes.
He's fast, he's got great hockey IQ, and he's a defensive, I don't want to say genius, but he's very solid defensively.
Yep.
Like, doesn't that all translate better to the small ice surface?
You would think. Yeah, exactly.
So that's my take on Oscar Fisker Molgaard, and I'm really excited to see where he goes. The start of the second round is going to be phenomenal. We're going to have our immediate reaction podcast after the first round. That'll be our Wednesday pod on draft night, because we're going to do the live stream just on YouTube before the draft. But right after the second day of the draft, we're going to jump on, do an immediate draft reaction. And I think I'm going to be really intrigued. I might have to bring up where Oscar Fisker Molgaard goes. So stay tuned for all that. We're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
No, not much for me. I mean, we're getting into the dog days of summer here. The Sens ownership is finally handled. The Alex DeBrincat story hasn't really moved. So we're waiting on Pierre Dorion to feed us a bone here.
Well, we're banging on the drum right now for Egor Sokolov and Jacob Bernard Docker. So we let us know anything that you want us to get into, any deep dives. You let us know. We're gonna wait on like free agent stuff. Like, let's see how this team shapes up, because I do believe that Pierre Dorion is going to change this roster before July 1st. So there's a couple days there right after the draft, before free agency, even though it's closer than ever. Right? Usually it's like the draft's like the 20th, 21st. Dude, it's the 28th, 29th. There's one day in between.
Yeah.
And it's travel day for me. I'm going to Ottawa. So we'll be boots on the ground at Dev Camp in Ottawa, get some live interviews banked as well for you guys all summer. Get to meet all the prospects. We've done it over the years over Zoom, and I think it'll just add such a cool aspect of being able to do it live in person. So stay tuned. Lots of great stuff this summer coming up. But for today, we say goodbye. Again, let us know in the comments your thoughts on Jake Bernard Docker, Egor Sokolov, both needing waivers for next season. And if you would be willing to pencil them into the lineup for opening night. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.